Hey, everybody. Sherry Ferguson here with Portland Connections. We are gathered here at the chamber office. So, we actually have a live guest today. Hopefully, people will be popping on and joining us. I'll wait just a few minutes and let people pop on. I see a couple. Those, as you come in, make sure you comment and share. Um, if you comment on the post as we are doing it live, you will go in for 2 meals from Brewster's Bar and Grill and also a three spread local love at 37148 shirt as well. So you get to choose who gets the money will go to, which business, small business, the money will go to. So pop on, share, make sure you make a comment so we can see. You make sure I can see all the comments. There they go. Hi, Daryl. All right, so today I have with me a guest that many of you know. Been waiting on him to come in. I think he's been looking for a barber, but Paul Fuqua with Shannon Insurance. Paul, come on in.
Hi, Sherry. I think we are all suffering from our barber shops being closed. I mean, you mentioned the fact you needed to see your hairdresser when she
Yes.
opens, and when you can't get into your local barber, things happen. And so I understand that maybe there's somebody going to open up for an emergency haircut for me in just a minute. So anyway, but we always want to support our local merchants and vendors and that type thing. So again, I'm happy to be here and answer questions. Sherry asked me to talk about COVID-19 and some insurance implications. So I just got the signal that a barber is going to do an emergency hair removal for me. So I'll be back in just a minute, and I'll just turn it back over to Sherry. Okay.
Well, guys, you know that this affects us in many ways. And I know one of those ways is through our insurance. A lot of people have questions such as, are things covered under my policy? And are there things that I need to be looking at or that I need to be doing for my own insurance policy? So, Paul, come on back in.
Wow, I feel much better. Thank you. I know that we've all been impacted by the lack of personal services, hairdressers, manicurists, massages, and things for our stress. And so it's just been an interesting 45 days, 60 days as we get into that. So I was going to address this on two different levels, personal insurance and commercial insurance.
Okay.
So
All
let's talk about personal insurance first. If you've been home and you've been watching television, you're hearing commercials about refunding premiums and getting checks and reducing,
we like checks.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a good move by many of the insurance companies to show that support to their client base. And so what they're doing is they're taking their data, because as we know from Bill Lee in Tennessee, they track traffic patterns and people in cars and that type thing. So that data is available for a price. And so I think they've been looking at that. And so companies also look at their loss ratios and accidents and frequencies, and they're way down. They are. And as far as auto accidents, those are down significantly.
So I know David, my husband, is working from home.
Right.
And he drove to Nashville every single day and has not driven to work in 6 weeks,
Right.
I guess. And they're actually working from home until the end of June.
Wow.
So that's a long time. We don't get a lot of miles on his car. So yes, I need a rebate. Just letting you know.
Okay. All right. Checks in the mail. So anyway, so that's that's auto insurance is being impacted that way. Homeowner insurance not really being impacted. I know that people are staying home, and from a loss ratio standpoint, if you have a pipe break and you're in Nashville, like David, and you're working here, and it runs for 6 hours, you have a lot of water in your house when you get home. But if you're working from home and a pipe breaks and you're making your 14th trip to the refrigerator that day and there's water in the floor, you take action and that type thing. So also when you're home and your car's in the driveway, if a person of questionable character is driving by looking to get in your house, they're not going to come in. So I do know that some of the criminal activity, we know that because we've seen the television reports, that's down also. So again, that's not as significant of a factor as the auto. So again, that's where the premium rebates are coming in most cases.
So are they most of them doing them at renewal? Or are they going on and doing that now? How are they taking place? Because my mom got one in the mail, but I don't know if it was her renewal or what that was.
Right. Most of the companies are sending out checks.
Okay.
Yeah, which, again, it's one of those things, whether it was your insurance company or your utility, what would you rather have, a credit to your bill or a paper check in the mail, money in your account, so I think that's the tack most of them are taking is that they're sending out checks.
Well, let's move away from COVID just a moment and talk a little bit about. I've seen on commercials that insurance companies let you put these trackers in your car and tells you if you're speeding. And I don't want one of those, by the way, because it makes your insurance go down or up based on how your driving activity. So, what is that actually all about? And is this kind of something that everybody's going to be going to, or is it a volunteer, or is it mandatory?
Well, yes. Well, what they're doing now, back in the day when you would get a plug-in device, you plugged it into your car, that would transmit a signal, as far as speed and braking and that type thing. Okay, because your car is got a computer,
Right.
and so they would be able to track that data off of that device, and so now they don't have to because they have these things. Okay. And back in the days, and I'm old, so I know this. Back in the day when you would have trucking services and these trucks would go across the country, well, they installed these computers in there and the truckers called them tattlers. Okay. Because they ran off satellite and they told them GPS coordinates. They could track speed. They knew where they were. And the truck drivers did not like them. But unfortunately, that they're part of the industry today. And so now you have a device. And to get a discount, you can sign up and that type thing. And, I'm kind of with Sherry. I don't want to be tracked by anybody, just not my insurance company. So, again, if you're a safe driver, and again, we all know how this works. If you're a safe driver and you obey the speed limits and you don't brake hard and you don't do other things, you're probably going to have less claim activity. So anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I don't want one in my car, but I did think it's kind of interesting.
It is good for everybody else, right?
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
All right. So talking about personal insurance, a lot of people have health insurance, right? You have group health or individual health policies. And so COVID-19 is a disease and it is covered under your health insurance. So,
but now the testing, is that state taking care of that? My understanding is there's not a charge, but are they still billing the insurance companies for that?
Well, we're in an area now because this is really fast developing and that type of thing, and they don't want someone to have to feel like they're going to get $1,000 bill for having a test. I mean, so the states are really pushing for the insurance companies to pay for the testing, which I think as it gets cheaper and faster, and we can do it yourself and that type thing, I think it'll be pretty much a non-issue. But again, this has been a developing story. And if you think about it, we moved at light speed to address a lot of the issues that we have. So, and if you get a question or something on there, sure.
I have to move closer to see if there's a question.
But so your auto insurance, your home insurance, your health insurance. So the other, I can switch over and we can talk about commercial. You have anything that we need to
Well,
address?
what about your business? How has your office been affected, and what have you done to make things different? I know in the beginning you had closed the actual doors, but people could come in. Tell a little bit about how you did that.
Well, Where we're located, we're in a house, 805 South Broadway, and it was built as a residential home in 1965 by the Shannon family, interesting enough. So I ended up buying that house. And so we have a front door and a back door, and people park in the back of our building where our parking lot is. And so we have a window that's right beside our back door. Okay. And so, we drive in window, drive up window, walk up window. So we've had that for about 30 days. And so, last Friday, a lot of the local banks and other places opened their lobby. We opened our lobby also, which is it's not a large area, but there's social distancing area there where you can be back 6 feet and that type.
So your employees were all still working.
Everyone worked. No one is sick. I encourage them not to go to health clubs. Before they were forced to shut down. And again, a lot of this, I think, it goes back to common sense, being safe. We're not shaking hands. We love our customers, but we wave and, we don't fist bump or anything like that. But, and most people understand. And I will tell you a funny story. About 2 weeks ago, I was out in the country outside of Portland, and I was at a house, and this farmer drove up and stuck his hand out. And so what did I do?
You stick your hand out. It's an automatic reaction.
Automatic. And I shook his hand, and I looked at it, I said, we're going to go to jail, right? And he's like, what for? And I said, we shook hands. He's like, oh yeah, that's not right. And fortunately, I was armed with hand sanitizer. So I spray, we all, sanitize. And so it's all good. But we're from the South, and a lot of people are huggers and fist bumpers and whatever. And it's just, I'm 59 years old, and I've been shaking hands all my life, and this is hard to break.
I wonder how William Lambert is surviving, because he's a hugger and he's just like hugs everybody. So I just wonder how people like him is going to be surviving.
I don't know. He's probably talking 24 hours a day to his kids, and so anyway, I don't know how they're going to cope with that. But his poor wife also. So anyway, anything that we need to address there, Sherry?
No, I think everybody is glad to see you. Looks like. Glad we're on here. They thought it was interesting about the information on the auto. So yes.
All right. So on commercial insurance, so you may have seen on the news where the government of the state of Tennessee and even the federal government wanted to relax the auto underwriting because so many delivery services, we need to deliver a lot of food. Well, most people kind of understand that if you buy a personal auto policy, it's just for you. Okay, it's just for you. You're not supposed to be a taxi or a delivery service or hauling anything.
Because the risk is great.
It's risk. Right. So with the advent of Uber and Lyft and some of these other ride sharing services, a lot of people came to us and they're like, hey, I want to start doing this. And we said, fine, it's going to cost you more money. And why? Well, you're going to be hauling people for a fee. And that goes back to the old livery. You heard of the livery stable with the horses. Well, that's an insurance term. When you're delivering things, it's called livery and delivery now. So a lot of people, when they started this, and they would call us and they would find out that it was more expensive. And we just kind of had to tell them it's something you either need to do or you not need to do. Okay. Because if you're going to do it and make money, then it makes sense. But if you're only thinking about doing it, or I'm only going to do it one day a month, it's probably not going to be cost efficient. So anyway, so the government has asked insurance companies to relax the underwriting requirements and allow that to happen and it be covered. And Sherry's laughing. So I don't know what Jim Donahoe called in on. So anyway, Jim Donahoe is actually supposed to be working, but I never catch him doing that. But anyway, different story for a different day. So anyway, so that's happened. Companies are allowing people to deliver food and that type thing. So that was relaxed, and that's a good thing. Also, when you're talking about business interruption and workers' compensation, a lot of conversation going on now about my business is closed. The state or the city or the government has said I have to close my business. Well, that's an insurance term called ordinance of law. Okay. So it's the same situation as if in Portland, the mayor and the city council said all new houses now built after June 1st, 2020 have to have a sprinkler system. That's a ordinance of law. Okay. It's an ordinance passed by our elected officials. So the question comes up about the government has told me to shut down my business. Is that business interruption? Well, it is. But all insurance companies have exclusions that are built into the policy. And most insurance policies, whether commercial or personal, like war is excluded. Okay. If there's a war, you think about it, and there's bombing and there's devastation and that type thing, it's not going to be covered because it'd be total devastation. And insurance companies, again, they have to stay in business, and to stay in business, they have to be profitable. Again, earthquake, normally not covered on any type of personal or commercial policy. Now you can buy that endorsement for earthquake. Okay, so
like
terrorism, you can buy an endorsement for terrorism. So the question comes up now, okay, I have business interruption. There was an ordinance that was passed, that said, you can't open. So I have business interruption. Is that covered? Well, insurance companies got in front of this about 15, 20 years ago with swine flu and some of these other things that have been out there. And they put an exclusion in that for pandemics, epidemics, what have you, those are generally not covered. Okay. And so, people will call me and ask me the question. And this is what I tell them. And I've been telling the same story. Okay. I'm an insurance agent. I can bind coverage on a person or a business. I cannot cancel coverage. Also, I'm not a claim adjuster. Okay. I can't adjust your claim. I can turn in your claim. I can communicate about your claim, but I can't write a check for a claim. Sure, he's laughing, and I'm sure they're
Jessica Russell.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I'm glad to see people are interested in this to make comments. But so there is an exclusion out there for pandemics and epidemics. Okay, but as I tell my clients, if you want to turn in a claim, I will turn in a claim. I'm happy to do that.
Thing that can happen
Is them say no,
Mm-hmm.
say no, that it
Right.
is not covered. So it's, again, there's a lot of moving parts to what's going on right now.
We do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So you were talking about delivery of meals. What about volunteer delivery for like the Hands of Hope or the school, if they're going to volunteer to take food to people? Is that something they need to add to their policy, or is that something that they can do?
Well, during this time, this limited time, the companies are being liberal in their interpretation and coverage to this type of, this type of thing. Again, this will be a limited time situation, but in the event that, this is something that somebody wants to do after, the pandemic is over and whatever, I would say contact your agent. That is the main thing you need to do, is contact your agent, tell them what you're doing, and then let them talk to their companies, because I do have some clients who deliver Meals on Wheels, but it's very limited, maybe 4 meals once a week or what have you. And we just make sure the company is aware of that exposure.
Right.
What's the other question?
Well, Jim Donahoe said, if you closed your main office inside, again, can I still get candy from the window?
If you will just slow down a little when you drive by, we'll throw it in your window. We will know your truck by the mud that's usually on the side and the tires. So yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Jim. So
Well, I think that's all the questions we had. You got some cheerleaders here. Jessica says if you need someone to fight for you, Paul's your guy. So
Thank you.
there you go.
Thank
So
you. Thank you, Jessica. Um, Workers' compensation, there's another question about, because that's workers' compensation covers employees in the event of accident or injury. Well, again, the question has come up that I've got employees that have COVID-19.
right.
Okay. Is there coverage? Well, it has to be specific to the business. Okay. So and I'll make this easy to understand. Coal miners, they work in a dusty environment and they had black lung disease. And that was directly tied to their employment situation. And so you've heard of mesothelioma and you've heard of asbestos. A lot of people that worked in the shipbuilding industries and heavy industry came down with those diseases, and they were a direct result
Of the job
that they had. The issue with the coronavirus is you could get it at the gym, you could get it from your kids, you could get it all over. It's all over. It is an invisible enemy, and so I'm sure there's going to be legal action taken because our nursing home and our assisted living facilities, unfortunately, have been heavily impacted by this, and the commercials are already on television,
Yes.
and so again, there's going to be a lot of maybe legislation and things that will happen. And, that may be one of the positives that come out of this, because someone has already asked me, they would like to see if they could get an endorsement for their policy that would cover, an epidemic. And probably that will happen because after 9/11 happened, there was a lot of emphasis on terrorism. And terrorism, it couldn't be domestic, it had to be foreign terrorism. But you can, on a commercial policy, you can actually buy a terrorism endorsement. Now, I don't think I have anyone in the Portland area that has it, but if you're in New York or hotspots, coastal large cities, I think it would be beneficial to have something like that.
Well, I know that this is a trying time for everyone, and nothing ever comes out until the flood of Nashville caused so many policies and so many things that people are doing differently today because the flood happened. 9/11, when that happened, transportation, airlines had to change everything. This is more widespread. It affects everyone. And we will see things that change today that you'll never see go back to the way that it was. And I think that finding out that, we can add a little bit to our insurance policy to cover certain things, I think that you'll find that as well as one of those. But I don't know that Zoom meetings will be all that we see. I'll really be glad when we can get into meeting people again and seeing people. I don't know if we'll ever go back to shaking hands, though. I mean, who knows where we'll go with this, but it does change our lives forever. And sometimes we'll sit back. Heck, I don't even know if I'm going to remember what I was supposed to do on a normal work day because the things have changed so much. So, but what other good information do you have as far as our insurance policy? Anything we need to be doing to our policies, or do we need to look at anything?
Well, one of the things I would always encourage people to do once a year, call your agent, have a conversation. We have an annual letter that we send out that has some information in the letter that says, have you made any changes to your life? Have you changed your job? Have you built onto your house? Because, our lives they're changing. They're just not static. And so everyone has things they need to talk to people about. And, every day I'll get a call from someone that has a question. hey, I'm renting my yard for my neighbor to sell vegetables out of. Is that something I need to check into? And it's absolutely, because I think we've all seen enough commercials on television about you deserve to be paid, and you get three times as much money out of if you hire someone. So anyway, you always need to make sure that you're properly protected.
And a lot of times we don't think about, we've added a big addition onto our house, and now a value of our house has gone up, and there might be if there is a loss, part of that might not be covered, and because you're not insuring it for the right value. So a lot of times we don't think about the things that to ask. So it is good that you send a letter and ask those questions, because to make us think about what we're doing. Do you have a teenage driver in the house, and things like that? Because those are things that when you're doing that, if you're not adding a car, you may not think that you have to do anything, but you still have to add those drivers, and it's not fun. The bank account does not like it, but
it is fun when you take them off,
yes.
or when they get a job and you start saying you need to pay your insurance premium.
So Jaska has a question. What would be considered liability insurance if they say they contracted the COVID at your place of business? I think that could be in two ways. It could be for employees, but it also could be people coming into your location. Do you think that that's going to be a liability that we're going to have to worry about, and what should they do to protect themselves?
Well, again, back on the attorney question, the answer that my attorney friend always says, the answer is it depends. So the it depends situation is, if you would almost have to prove you went nowhere else, you had no contact with anyone else, that you lived in a bubble, you went to one business during this time, you had no other communication with any other humans, you went into this business, and somehow you came back and you contracted that disease. Okay, it's going to be hard to prove. That's going to be hard to prove. But again, will there be lawsuits? Absolutely. Because this is what I tell people when they call me and ask questions about, what can happen. Well, in any situation, everybody gets sued. Okay. So the legal action, and I use the stand. Okay. So your neighbor has a vegetable garden. They want to sell in your property, because you got a big yard and their yard's all used up for their garden. So they want to use your yard. Somebody gets out of their vehicle, trips over their own feet, and breaks their hip. Well, everybody gets sued. The property owner gets sued, and the vendor gets sued, because they say, well, it was an attractive nuisance, and you shouldn't have had it in the man's yard. You should have had it on a paved surface. And so there's all kinds of issues that come out. And so I tell people, buying insurance is the cheapest form of getting legal representative that you can buy. Because if you pay $500 for a policy for $1 million worth of coverage, you think about it. If you had to go get a really, really good attorney, they charge $500 an hour. Okay. So I hope that answers that question. So,
well, I think it goes back to anybody can sue you for anything. But I do think that the whole idea is to be as mindful as you can, take as many precautions as you can, and watch out for yourself and your business. You take, again, if you people are coming into your place of business, offer curbside pickup, offer things that are going to make it easier for them. And if you're doing all that you can do to prevent it, then you're less likely to be, not to be sued, but to be found guilty of something, and you're not neglecting something. So,
because our window was open and people could come up and, give us cash and whatever. So, I preach, and I've gone through cans of Lysol or antibacterial and sprayed money, sprayed handles, sprayed keyboards, sprayed the refrigerator handle, the microwave, and the keypad. the fax machine. So if you're encouraging your employees to practice really good hygiene, you're as an owner of a business, you're taking precautions, because I'm telling you, my office is cleaner today than it's ever been. Okay, because I want to keep my people safe, and nobody knowingly wants to give anybody a disease that would either injure them or, in the worst case scenario, result in death. And so it's a serious thing. It is a serious thing.
It's funny the things you think about now that you might not have thought about before. I go to pick up a pen to sign something. I think, oh, I'm touching that. Or you go to push the keypad at the grocery store and you're like, oh, I got to push these buttons. So then your hand sanitizing as soon as you get done. But it's funny, you never thought about doing these everyday things that we do all the time, touching the door handles. You don't think anything about going out. You think about going, it's funny because we'll think about leaving the bathroom and touching the door. And you're thinking, oh, I don't want to touch the door. But every other door you go out, you don't think about it. It's just because it's the bathroom door. So.
Well, I've done a lot of sliding, and I'm not a small person, but when that door is open, I just kind of slide through because I don't want to touch anything.
Yes.
And that type thing. And, turning off faucets with your elbows and that type thing. And I come out, I'm like a surgeon, and I'm like, okay, don't touch me, don't breathe on me.
And I hate the air dryers too. I can't deal with the air dryers either. So, so it is funny how we have changed what we think about every time we go to pick up something or every time we go to do something. Your phone is probably the worst thing that you have because everything gets on it. Right. But I do typically spray mine down every morning and every evening. I try to clean it with glass cleaner, mainly because I can't see the screen, but because makeup's on it.
Well, one of the things, and when you talk to people, I have a grandson, and he turned a year old March the 12th. Okay, and on my calendar, my planner, when this all kind of broke loose, we heard about China and Europe and that type thing, and we heard about that, and a little in January and some in February, but I wrote on my calendar, coronavirus starts, and it was March the 10th. Okay, that's when things started to get real here, and so basically I have been on lockdown from my grandson, and I have not touched him or held him since about that time. And so Saturday I got to go and see him in person, and they're good about sending FaceTime and videos, but it is, as when you have grandchildren, or puppies or dogs, it's one thing, to see them on the screen, but to be able to, to touch them and, hug them and that type thing. And my mother was in Florida that week and came back on March the 12th. And my mother, I won't tell her age, but she's above 60. Okay. And I'm 59, so you can kind of do the math. So anyway, but I had to tell her she couldn't go to the grocery store, and that type thing. And, and again, my mother's a very independent person and takes care of herself, and we're happy with that. But when she came back, and the world changed for her drastically. I have not kissed or hugged my mother since she came back. And so, I feel my heart goes out to those families where people have gotten the disease and they've been in the hospital.
And you can't, we have a firefighter that had surgery, knee surgery.
Right.
He went through everything, nobody visiting. Knee surgery, stayed overnight in the hospital, nobody could come in. Right. I mean, it is something that you don't ever think about having to do. Now, I have had the the benefit of being able to see my grandkids, but that's because I had to keep them because my daughter's a nurse. Right. So somebody has to watch them. My daughter's a nurse. My son works for the electric company, so he's on call. They won't let them ride in the truck. I don't know why, but they won't let them ride the truck. So, so they would stay at my house. So we had already been exposed. So that is one that I did get to continue to see, but it is very difficult to distance yourself from the families. And again, we're all walking in different times, and hope that this is over soon.
Well, And do we have any other questions? And I'll just make a couple of other comments. Our church in Springfield is actually going to start meeting this Sunday
Okay.
in different groups, different times, different people.
Kind of like small groups?
Well, we're going to be at 10 o'clock on Sunday in Springfield. That we have three areas or two areas, and large fellowship hall, 10,000 square feet. So it's large. So we have different times that people are going to meet this Sunday and then next Sunday. And again, we've all been on it. We've had access to Zoom and FaceTime and other,
It's not the same.
That type thing. But again, I think as a culture, we're a group of people who, we like, personal contact and that type thing. But the other side of this, which has been really good, I think, is we've shown appreciations for some of our frontline workers out there.
Yes.
Who have kept us fed and kept us informed and kept us safe, that type thing. And so we're checking on our neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. I'm checking. I've talked to my mom more than in the last, 45 or 50 days than I've talked to her. And, I would usually call her once a day or whatever. Now it's twice a day. And we, take her food since she's a prisoner in her own house, and that type thing. But, I think just being mindful of the people that are around us, and people are nice. Again, it's frustrating, but
It does bring out kindness.
yeah,
I
it
think.
does. It does. And so, and thank goodness for Portland Cares, what they're doing, helping. And we have our other food pantry.
Yes, Hands of Hope and Pay It Forward. Both of them are helping the
Right.
community, that people that are losing jobs and they're struggling there. So
Right.
we'll get those. I know that the Rotary Club has actually fed the frontline workers and tried to show them appreciation as well. And I think that it's funny how sometimes you don't think about who are really important. And so many of these jobs have, like you say, kept food on our table. And we're very appreciative of those people that have been going to work and doing those things.
Any other questions that?
Melanie says, "Hey, Paul." So, no, we got several watching though. We do appreciate you coming out and telling us a little bit. I know it's hard. David has always told me when he brings home his packet from work, anything that has to do with insurance, I don't even look at it. You just tell me what I need to do. So some of us do not like to deal with insurance, and we need somebody to tell us what's important. And I think that everybody likes when you see on TV, they're going to send you checks. And so when you started seeing that, I was like, wonder if we're going to get a check. So it is nice to know that they are evaluating their risk and giving back, because again, as you have a teenage driver, I would not want to insure a teenage driver. I raised 3 children, and
You were one at one time?
I was one at one time, and I would not want them to have insured me either. So I understand why, but it is hard on the pocketbook. So when you can find that they are looking at, I'm not driving as many miles and they're going to give me a little bit of money back, and it does make you feel a little better about that. Somebody says, thank God, they thank God daily. They were born in the 50s. What a great era growing up in the 60s. Our kids and grandkids will never understand our love for what we had during those times. And I think that's true. I think that there's a lot of things now. We have a lot of things to be appreciative of now, too. We've been immersed into technology and had to learn to use Zoom. My mother has used Zoom for her church service.
Wow.
So that is very interesting. My mom and dad, every Sunday, they would get on the Zoom and watch their pastor online, which shocks me that they would do that. So that we've been immersed in a lot of things that we've not had to do. We've always thought, even in our business world, I might need to do that. I should learn how to do that. But now we've been made to do that. So I think that some of this, there's going to be some good brought out of this as well.
Well, forced learning
Yes.
is good. I mean, that's what I call it. If you, I went to the office before I came here, and I have a new laptop. Well, the last laptop I had was 15 years ago. And I think I ended up making a boat anchor out of it because it was so old. But I have a new laptop, and that has a camera, which is scary. So anyway, I was sharing with Sherry earlier, I said, let's make sure our laptop is face level. I'm really tired of looking at people up from their chin to the top of their head. It's a little scary. You know, there are a lot of people I don't want to see that way, Jim Donahoe. I don't want to see your face. You know, that's a thing of nightmares.
Well, I'll tell you also, Paul Fuqua used to bring his phone to his office staff and say, can you put somebody's number in there for me? So he has come a long way with technology, I will say.
Well, part of that was just being royalty. And so anyway.
Yeah, that's what you want to call it.
Being treated well. But anyway, they did take care of me. But I've forced myself to learn some of these things. And I will tell you, I have two sons. One's 27, one's 30. And you know, they've been helpful with me and my wife and my mother, showing, okay, this is how you need to do this, and it's not that hard. You know, let me help you, because you know, I just know from, you know, we grew up in the computer age. You know, don't touch that button. You know, it's kind of like you'll launch missiles. You know, and they're on there clicking every button on the screen and trying to make, and you know, we find out that it won't blow up or it won't go away and that type thing. So you know, there's been a lot of cross-generational training, you know, which is great. I think that's a great thing. And so we're all, you know, we're all in this together. And I know that sounds a little hokey, but it's true. It is true. And, you know, being nice and being kind and really kind of getting the fact that, you know, what's really important in life, you know, what is important. And I think that's one of the lessons that we're learning. So.
So make sure that if you have been on here that you comment, because we will be giving away 2 meals. I think this week it's going to be to Brewster's. So every day that you get on and make a comment, you'll go in for another time. So if you comment every day this week, you will have 3 opportunities, because we'll be on today, tomorrow, and Thursday. You'll have 3 opportunities to chances to go in for to win those 2 meals and a shirt. Spread the local love, 37148. From Graphic Obsessions. They are allowing you to give back on that as well. So we do thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Paul, for being here, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.